Hi, guys. I'm Alexandra Herbushka, founder of Life with Herpes. I'm really excited to have a guest on the show today. We have Coach Sarah Joy. And if you've listened to my podcast in the past, I think it was maybe a year ago, we had Sarah on talking about herpes, talking about thyroid, talking about her experience. So let me just bring you up to date on what Coach Sarah has been working on. She is one of America's breakthrough thyroid coaches. She's a fellow former Epstein Barr, herpes, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism warrior as well. And if you know anything about me, if I've mentioned it before, I deal with thyroid issues. And so, of course, I deal with herpes. So this is right on track with me. After 10 years of chronic daily symptoms, Sarah eliminated oral and genital sores, severe fatigue, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, hair loss, multiple food intolerances, severe memory loss, brain fog, low libido, bloating, self-esteem issues, people-pleasing tendencies, and a lot of abuse and trauma by narcissistic partners. So I definitely know this is going to be right on track with a lot of us dealing with some of these issues. So after struggling through tons of bad doctors, both Western and Eastern, their gaslighting, bad advice, and bad medicine, she decided to take her health back, take her power back. Sarah has spent thousands of hours researching and thousands of dollars on her own treatments. After reversing all of it and undiagnosing herself from those medical labels, Coach Sarah Joy is now a certified transformational nutrition and thyroid coach with a degree in health and fitness. As a holistic root cause coach, it is her passion to help women battling hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, Graves, and or Hashimoto's as well. And as well as infectious diseases like herpes, Epstein Barr, HPV, strep, gut, vaginal biome imbalances, diet struggles, metals and mineral imbalances, all sorts of stuff, trapped trauma. Basically, this is everything that we need to discuss here on this podcast, because what I talk about is herpes is the icing on the cake. There were so many other issues going on that we don't see, we don't realize. We just kind of go on with life, and all of a sudden, boom, we get this herpes diagnosis, and then we're forced to deal with it. So I'm going to let Sarah take it away, and welcome to the show again, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that was a ridiculously long intro, but it's all true.
We need to
So,
have it in there.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I am excited to be back. It has been about a year since we did our first episode, and that episode really shook up the scene for me because a lot of your listeners came to me and were like, oh my gosh, is there really a connection between herpes and thyroid illness? And I feel like one by one, I've been, educating women in my DMs about the absolute connection between the two. And it's been pretty mind-blowing for everyone to learn. So I thought it would be really helpful just to come back with you and discuss this openly so everyone's questions can be answered, but also we can take like a deeper dive into the connection between all the things so that we're empowering ourselves, because knowledge is power, right?
Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah. So the first thing I want to open up, I did a full story on the first episode with you. And so anyone that hasn't listened to that one, go ahead and maybe pause right here and switch to that one so you could hear my full story. I'll share just bits of it.
Yeah.
But really this one, because my story is so stinking long, I wanted to just really get into the juicy stuff of what's going on, like the more medical side of things rather than my story. So like you heard, I did struggle with cold sores, to be honest with you, I don't remember if it was HSV2 or HPV. I think it was more HPV. I did have genital warts when I was 20 for like a year. Epstein Barr, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, and so the first question, so let this just be the opener. How often do I see women with herpes having thyroid issues? Okay.
Yeah.
And so this starts with me, okay? The connection of women having herpes and thyroid issues. So after I was sick for 10 years and I lost my brother, and I really was just fed up with the system not helping me, I started testing myself. And I remembered in like a few years prior, our doctor was like, oh, you have Epstein Barr. That was how I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. It was like the same sentence of like, oh, you have Epstein Barr and you have Hashimoto's. And I was like, what and what? So fast forward when
And
I'm
just to
now like
clarify, to clarify, Epstein Barr is mono, right?
yeah, Epstein Barr is mono. Thank
So
you.
if you've ever had mono in the past, like in high school or whatever, it is a herpes cousin. It is a herpes virus,
Right.
and it kind of it does it does a lot.
A lot.
It does a lot. Mm-hmm.
It's very damaging. They're all very damaging, which I plan on getting into more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was starting to not knowing a thing, okay, you guys, I was just like randomly doing whatever. I was kind of following my intuition, right? So I remembered a doctor was like, you have Epstein Barr. So I was like, well, maybe I should start there. And so I went to my doctor one day and I was like, can you pull my Epstein Barr? And he was really cool and he did. And I found that there was 4 different IgG blood panels on my lab results. I was looking at them. And one of them said that, yes, I was positive that and it actually had a note from the lab saying that I probably contracted it from birth. And one of the other ranges showed like the severity of my infection, and the lab range was like 0 to 600. And I was like at like a 587. So like a really high infection. I remember thinking like, well, that's not good. You know, what am I going to do about that? And slowly, as this like 2-year process went on, that I was pulling my own labs on myself and ordering labs and doing these discoveries, I started doing antiviral foods and herbs and protocols on myself, because I was like, well, I have a virus. I should probably get rid of it, right? Just very simple. Right. And in the discovery over time of really guinea pigging all of these things on myself, I started noticing that because I would go back and have my doctor retest me like every 6 months. And he was just, he was cool. And he would just do like a full thyroid panel, and he would add like the EBV, IgG antibodies on there. And I started noticing, oh my gosh, as I bring down my Epstein Barr antibodies, my thyroid antibodies are coming down too. What is going on? So this is where this all started. Okay. Obviously, I was like, this is a big deal, but I didn't put too much thought into it at the time. I wasn't even a coach yet. I was still in school, just kind of like working on myself, quietly. So over the years, so I graduated, got my degree, got my certification. And after I had pinpointed through testing all of the things that were making me sick, all of the things that were causing my symptoms, that's when I was like, I can't not help women. So I started my company and I started coaching. One of my very first clients, she was really fatigued, like to the point where she would come home from the hospital. She was a surgical prep nurse, and she would just faceplant on the couch and like black out. Her fatigue was so bad. And then she would just sleep for a couple hours, get up, maybe eat some dinner, do this, do that, and then go back to sleep. And just, her getting like a physical and saying like, oh, hey, I got these labs, because I don't interpret labs, but I don't mind looking at my clients' labs just to like educate them. Right. Because a lot of people just don't even know what labs mean. And so I remember she submitted her labs to me, and there was, she had a really severe Epstein Barr, and for her in particular, the mono had reactivated. Like it showed positive that her mono had reactivated, which even the doctor was like, well, that explains your severe fatigue. She had a diagnosis of Hashimoto's, and she was also had a history of strep throat to the point of getting her tonsils removed. So she was kind of like, I started piecing these little puzzles together through her like 4 years ago. So as time has gone on and I've been coaching more and more women over the years, there's been a lot of the same things where they're saying in their intake forms, I've had HS, I have cold sores, or I contracted HSV2, or I have a history of shingles, or I have a history of strep. And I started noticing a lot of these repeated patterns between infections and thyroid diagnoses. And about 6 months ago, it got to the point. Okay, so now I'm, almost four years into coaching. I've had multiple one-on-one clients, help them reverse and put everything into remission. And so now I feel concrete and confident in sharing my findings of like, this is such a problem that is not being addressed by any of the medical systems, Eastern or Western, that I'm finding in everyone I'm working with, that I am now trying to provide this education to the world. Okay. That it is no coincidence if someone has HSV1, HPV, HSV2, or Epstein Barr, that at some point they will probably receive a thyroid diagnosis.
I mean, as you're talking, I'm checking off every box. I'm like, yep, I had strep back to back. I don't have my tonsils anymore. I do not have Epstein Barr. That I know for sure, but definitely deal with HSV1 and HSV2.
Yeah, right. And so exactly. Once someone is aware of these things and they start looking at their health history, like what you just did, it's like, oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So what you said in the beginning, what everyone needs to understand, okay, is that all of these different viruses, like I just am now referring to them as infections. Okay. Herpes is like a trigger word in society, right? It's like the dirty trigger word. But, from my standpoint, I just look at it as viral infections. Because they're all under the same umbrella, like you said earlier with Epstein Barr, right? A lot of the different viruses that we talked about, they all do fall within the herpes family. And there are hundreds, if not thousands of strains of these things that haven't even been uncovered by medical research and science, So having the test and the testing is very minimal as well. We only have testing for a couple strains. And
there's hundreds of strains of herpes.
Yeah, there's so many varieties, and they're continuing to mutate and change every year as well. And I feel like they're getting stronger, and I feel like they're causing more and more health problems on the daily. And I truly believe, from everything that I'm literally dealing with day in and day out with my clients, that this is one of, if not the main root cause of a lot of illnesses, especially thyroid illness. So I know a lot of people ask me like, well, wait a second. So what's the connection between herpes and the thyroid directly? Okay, so let's talk about that. So it was like what I was saying that I found in myself. My clients that have come to me and they've given me their labs. I typically want to see the TPO and the TPO and TGO antibodies more so than the TSH. Okay. Where
really?
The doctors really want to hone in on that TSH and they want to make it a really big deal. But first of all, what makes me mad about that is the range of, and a lot of people are aware of this by now, and if not, you're going to learn it now. The range of the testing is just so uncalibrated that it's a terrible diagnostic tool, and it hasn't been updated since the 60s or 70s. And so, the range is a 0.5 to a 4.5. And so I have a lot of women that will come to me and you hear the stories of like, oh, I was normal, but I'm not okay. So that's the big problem with TSH. Okay.
I can speak to that as well. You know, both of us being San Diego natives, I went to Scripps and my doctor's like, "Oh, you're a 4. You're normal." And I was like, "But I don't feel well. I can't get out of bed. I gained 12 pounds. Like, what just happened? I signed a contract that I'm going to fit into my wedding dress and I don't fit into my wedding dress. Like, what is happening here?" You know, and meanwhile, my naturopath was like, 0.4 or 4 is not okay. Like,
terrible. Yeah.
awful.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and so that's why I don't really like the TSH either, because it's just not a good gauge of how someone is doing,
Mm-hmm.
and the holistic side of looking at the range, like you just said, is like naturopath, functional alternative medicine doctors. Like, everyone knows that if you're like feeling good or doing better with your medication, it's like a 0.5 to a 1.5 is like the good range.
Yep.
So this is why TSH to me is kind of just useless, right? What I want to see is those antibodies, because what I have learned more and more and more is people that have elevated antibodies. This is actually showing me, and remember, this is all my findings, there's no research that backs this. I'm making these theories and these connections myself. Okay. So if someone was to go ask their doctor about this, the doctor might laugh at them, right? But this is what I literally see with my clients. Okay. The people that have the elevated TPO and TGO antibodies, this to me shows the actual level of infection in the actual thyroid gland itself. Okay. So these antibodies, and I want to make this very clear, Google, the medical system, everyone thinks that a Hashimoto's diagnosis means my body's attacking itself, right? And that narcissistic bullshit diagnosis right there, my opinions, all it does is put the blame back on you, which is why I call it narcissistic, because they love to spin shit around and blame it on you. And all that does is make you feel faulty and like something's wrong with you, like it's your fault. When in reality, I feel like that is an indication of your thyroid sending out immune antibodies to fight the infection that's actually occurring within the thyroid gland. It is a cry for help. It is the immune system's markers that show in the bloodstream that there is a war going on within your gland. So if you look at it from that standpoint, and then you can just simply ask yourself, well, what's attacking my thyroid gland?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, why is my body attacking my thyroid? You can say, why is my body sending out antibodies to help me fight something attacking my thyroid? Does that kind of make
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
right? Makes sense. And so, like I was sharing with you guys earlier, I look at these antibodies and that will tell me whether there's like a mild infection in the thyroid gland. And then I bounce it off of the viruses that come back as well, and the severity or just the existence of these viruses in their body as well. And then that right there is like the first step that I'm going to take in their individualized protocol in order to help them recover their health and recover their thyroid health, especially. Now, the TSH does play, in my mind, it does play a small role in the kind or like the strain of infection that we're finding, because in my opinion, again, like you said, with all the different strains and variants of infections, this, in my opinion, is what indicates whether you are going to go hyper or hypo. Okay. And so when women present a very low TSH, that's below a 0.5, that indicates hyper. And so that tells me, okay, we're dealing with a very aggressive strain, because the more aggressive strains send them hyper and they move faster and they destroy in a different way. And that's why women with Graves or hyper, they have very different symptoms than women with hypo. But the typical population, the typical society has the strains that aren't as aggressive, and they go hypo, and that would be the TSH between a 0.5 and a 4.5.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Makes all sense to me. Those of us that have thyroid issues, I'm like, I know these numbers. I know them very well.
Yeah, good. So, I mean, you can, by just connecting these dots, okay? So if you look at a thyroid issue as more viral based problems, then that would understand why the medication doesn't really help. It doesn't really do anything, right? So the medication is a supplement. It's supposed to just help what your gland supposedly isn't producing, right?
Mhm.
But if your gland isn't functioning properly because it's under attack, it's being destroyed, then that would be why medication isn't going to solve the problem, because it's not an antiviral. It's not gonna address the root cause. It's just a supplement for a bigger picture of bigger situation going on underneath. So some indications of a infection affecting the thyroid gland. This is the other thing that really blew everyone's mind on the last episode that I wanted to touch on again, but a little deeper. So a lot of people are like, well, how do I know if this is actually going on in my thyroid gland? Okay. So the number one thing that we all see that the thyroid gets blamed for, poor thyroid gets blamed for everything, is your fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, people always ask me, why am I so tired? And I'm like, well, honey, if your body has an infection happening behind the scenes that it's really struggling to keep under control, then it's using and expending a lot of extra energy that it normally wouldn't need to fight that fight. So you're going to be hella tired because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the fatigue that like sleep cannot fix. Okay.
Right. Oh, I know that. I know that's fatigue big time.
We all know that fatigue. I
Yeah.
used to call it dragon ass. Yeah. Okay. So the second indication is your nodules.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's any sort of growth. Okay. So it's nodules, it's cysts, it's goiters, and it's even cancer. It's cancer in the thyroid. I had a client who worked with me. Again, in the very beginning, I was only offering 3-month programs. Now I offer like literally a year,
Mm-hmm.
because, I see that it takes a while to get everything under control. She did a 3-month stint with me and then fell off of all of her supplements, everything that I put her on. And 2 years later, and she had a very high Epstein Barr, like everything we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And she out of the blue messaged me, and it broke my heart, but she's like, you're not going to believe this, but I was diagnosed with EBV based thyroid cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm so freaking sorry. She's fine. She's still alive. She made it. But the fact that they biopsied her gland and actually focused it in on that, I was not surprised, because I already knew she had a really severe infection happening that was being left unchecked. So migraines, some other indications. So one of the things that you guys have to understand is these viruses really saturate our nerves, nerve endings, and our central nervous system. Okay. So you'll have a lot of nervous system based problems. Okay. Like migraines, depression, anxiety, concentration issues. And for my ladies that have gone hyper, that have the more aggressive strains, this is when you really see it move into the eyes.
Mm.
So there's TED. There was a diagnosis called TED, and there's bulging eyes, and there's
Mhm.
glaucoma. Um, Also, I see a lot of women where these viruses are moving into their reproductive organs
Mhm.
and they're infecting their uterus and their ovaries. And they can have, that's why some women will feel like they're getting diagnosed with like the early onset menopause, perimenopause. They can have PCOS issues. They can have the uterine cysts,
Mhm.
infertility, miscarriages, horrible periods. Uh, just if your body part is infected, it's not going to be working properly, right?
Right.
I'm also, there's actually studies that have linked breast cancer back to these viruses, as well as high cholesterol. A lot of people think cholesterol is connected to the food we eat because of what we've been told. Well, really, cholesterol is controlled by your thyroid gland.
Hmm.
So if your thyroid gland isn't functioning, then your cholesterol can be out of whack. I mean, obviously, we don't want you eating like junk and
Right.
saturating your arteries with, crappy fats and all these things. But I find a lot of confusion on that as well. It's like cholesterol issues actually are linked to the thyroid gland or thyroid dysfunction of the gland.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so eye floaters, torn retinas, like a lot of eye issues
Hmm.
will go for the more aggressive strains. Um, yeah, I feel like they just will start wreaking havoc on, like there's stages. Like everyone, if you're not aware of this, like there's actual stages that these viruses like mutate through, right? So you can contract them. We all know you can contract them through intercourse, sharing a drink with someone, a straw, chapstick, whatever sort of
Right.
infection through birth. Your mom can pass. That's the other thing is a lot of people don't realize that they think a lot of their thyroid issues could be genetic,
Hmm.
but what's genetic is the virus. The virus is spreading from mother to child. Bless you. And so they're having similar health problems because they have the same strains of viruses.
Interesting.
Mhm. So, any questions?
I'm amazed at all this because I'm thinking about myself in particular. I'm thinking about friends. I'm thinking about, all, you hear little things here and there. People say, oh, I had this issue, or I have that issue, or this is something I've been dealing with for a while or whatever. And it's all linked up.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
everybody has herpes. That's the thing, is everybody
Everyone.
has herpes. They just don't either know they have it, or they have one type or the other. They have the chicken pox, they have the Epstein Barr, they have whatever. We all have some type, and it's a kind of a gnarly virus.
Exactly. And so thank you for saying that because that's what I'm trying to get out there as well. And so where this confusion I feel like is happening is through the testing. Okay. So they'll go in and they'll be like, can you test me? Or, they'll get like a virus panel done. And okay, so we're already like dealing with limited testing, right?
Right.
There's not even enough tests for how many viruses and strains exist. Okay. But then there's maybe not the right kind of testing being pulled. And so they could maybe just be like told, like, oh, like, no, yours is negative, where maybe that negative meant that they were negative for like a current breakout, but they technically are positive for having it, but it was like maybe interpreted wrong or just tested wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like a lot of people are like, no, I'm good. But like what you just said, I mean, you can pull up any statistic in a heartbeat on Google, like the stats on people that have EBV worldwide, boom, it'll be like 95%.
Yeah.
Same with HSV too. 98% of people have it, whether they know it or not. And you can just look at those stats and be like, damn, everyone has this.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's so unfair that it's like taboo and like looked so down upon. Because I look at, with everything I know and everything I do, these
Right.
people that are like judging others, I'm like, I know you have it. Like, I know you have it, so you better just
Right.
put your mouth right now,
Right. Let's just look at your labs. Let's
Yeah.
just look at your panel.
Yeah.
How are
Right.
those bulging eyes?
My girlfriends, joke around with me because I'm single by choice right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, whenever you do decide to start dating, I feel bad forever. You're going to settle down with, because you're going to be like, here's the list of labs I need you to go pull before I'm willing to kiss you or anything.
That's true, though.
I mean, honestly, like back in the, I don't know, but I just remember like when I was in my 20s and I was like, getting married and stuff, like I think I heard, this is so just vague, that like maybe it was the Catholic Church or like some sort of a religion has like marriage counseling. And within the counseling, they actually had people go and do testing before they got married.
That's great.
I know, it was standard. I was like, hell yeah to
Yeah.
that. Like that, you know, one of the ways that I, a lot of younger generation women are coming to me that haven't become moms yet. And I'm so grateful to be able, like, I love helping everyone, okay? Don't get me wrong, but I love helping them in particular because I know this is so contagious. So if we can get this under control before and rebuild their immune system, get their immune system really strong, their minerals on check, their, vaginal biome healthy, their gut biome healthy, and all the things that I do before they build a baby in their body,
Right.
they're going to have a healthier, happier child.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to feel better and they're going to be able to have a healthier, happier child
Mm-hmm.
right from the get-go.
Right.
So this is really important that we're talking about this for, women that haven't yet had children to realize this is important, very important to work on.
I can't wait for people to hear this episode, like you said, wherever you are in your journey. And the thing is it's not about a herpes outbreak. It's not about this, it's not about that. It's let's get our health in check and let's get on the right path for our health and for our abundance. Because when that is flourishing, when that is great, you're not having outbreaks, you're not fatigued, you don't have brain fog, all these things are not impacting, like you said, before you become a mother, and making sure that your body is ready to become a mother, and that it's a beautiful time in your life. So I'm like, where do I go with it? I mean,
it's so important, like, to build your body properly
right.
before conceiving. And that
Absolutely.
goes for your man too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the baby is going to inherit everything,
Mm-hmm.
including your viruses. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I dealt with cold sores for 15 years. It was so miserable. And my kids always wanted to drink off of my water bottles. And okay, so I actually talked about this with my client this morning because she was like, every time I have my period, I get outbreaks. Like, why? And I'm like, I'll tell you why. And this was one of the things that I noticed for myself. Like every time I was on my period, I would get a massive cold sore. It was just painful. And then my kids would try to drink off of my water bottle. And I was like, like,
Yeah.
slow motion diving across the room to stop them from drinking off my water bottle. Like, I don't want anyone having to go through this. And I don't want their poor little baby toddler or someone contracting cold sores, or which can turn into canker sores too, which is very, very painful. And it's just one of those things we have to be aware of. So the reason why we are more susceptible to getting breakouts when we're on our period or ovulating. Okay. So I call it just like, it goes with anything within the reproductive system in my viewpoint. Okay. So this is pregnancy, this is ovulation, and this is menstruation. Okay. Your immune system. So I'm going to put this very simply. When these things are happening within your body, especially at the moment of labor and delivery, okay, your immune system's viewpoint and focus is on your reproductive system. It's like all hands on deck, all eyes over here to this part of the body, and they just sort of all swarm in And this is their focus for a week or for 2 days or a day, right? Whatever, if your ovulation, whatever you're at, wherever you're at. And as these viruses are opportunistic, okay, say, so they're like, guys, the gateway's open. They didn't
Right.
lock the gate. Go, 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 go. And they rush in to wherever their little favorite body part that they're infecting and thriving in right then. So whether it's your central nervous system or your liver or your thyroid gland or your reproductive system, they're going to have a full-on like attack and outbreak. And I call it like a little like breakout party. And the immune system is over here still like, all right, is everything okay with the uterus? Is everything okay with the ovaries? And they're busy. And then when that's done, they come back and they're like, oh, you guys are back. And then it's war.
Right.
And they get it under control and they go away, they heal. And that can be the cycle. So one of the things that I teach my clients that I started doing myself was when I knew, like a couple days before my period was coming on, or a couple days before I was going to ovulate, and during my pregnancy, you have to be mindful of boosting, taking and eating certain things that will really boost your immune system to keep it stronger and more dedicated and have more ninjas to send out to fight the virus so the breakouts don't happen.
This is something I get questioned every single day. And, why is it around my period, or why do I always get outbreaks? And I always say, like, your body's busy focusing on a baby, even though you're not having a baby or you may not be pregnant, that's what your body's focus is. And so I'm so glad to hear it from you as well, that this is so common. So yeah, like you said, there are some things we can do and
Yeah.
to help us.
Yeah. And this is why women tend to get sicker more than men as well.
Mm.
And I don't want anyone to look at having a baby or pregnancy or ovulation or menstruation as a like, oh, here we go, it sucks to be a girl. No. Okay. These are beautiful, amazing things your body can do. But because your body is so beautiful and amazing, it needs extra support during these times so that these opportunistic a-holes can't attack. And that's it.
Right.
So it's just about increasing your knowledge on how to better support and protect your body. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you, like, okay, someone walks in, someone goes, I need to talk to Sarah. What do you do? How do you support them from day one?
Well, the first thing I need to know is their history and their symptoms. Symptoms, what I do, okay, humble brag. I'm so good at what I do that people can tell me their symptoms and I can know right off the bat which direction I need to take them. Okay. So, one of my favorite things that I'm opening up right now, I've been focusing on gut health for high concentration of gut and pathogen infection health together. Because anyone that works with me now, we're going to address this infection situation. It's just standard protocol. I decided, you work with me, this is part of it. But based on their symptoms, and what I'm finding is a lot of women have depleted like gut health. The gut health is so, sorry to say, but unless you are like eating so clean, like tons of fruits and greens and microgreens and vegetables and just such a high plant-based diet, then your gut is probably infected and it's probably depleted. And I know that's a harsh thing to say, but I'm sorry, I've done 25 deep analysis. I have a 19-page gut test, and I've done 25 of them in the past 2 years. And this is what I'm seeing in everyone. Okay. So the reason why people have a lot of gut infections is because of high antibiotic use.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have been, me too, guys. Like I was put on, I had group strep B. So I was put on IV antibiotics during my labor and delivery. I had
Oh,
tons of sinus infections. I had some UTIs. So I have the typical gram-negative bacteria in my gut too. That was like, you've been on a lot of infections that have depleted your good guys in your gut, right? And then on top of that, we're going in and out and we're
right.
antibiotic-laced meat, you know,
Right.
and all. So we've been saturated in this, like it or not. And then on top of that, what happened during lockdown? Everyone went psycho with the antimicrobials, hand sanitizer, bleach, just bleach
Mhm.
wipes and Clorox, and like all of these things severely damage your good guys in your gut, which again, the infections, they're opportunistic. So if just like your immune system, if your good bacteria is low and not strong, then the bad guys have the opportunity to come in and
To
take
take
over,
over. Hmm.
right? And so I have found that the first thing I need to do with women is rebuild their gut because they're not even absorbing because they have so many infections. And I at first I was focusing on minerals and metals because heavy metals feed the viruses so strong. But after realizing I'm doing these mineral protocols with my clients, but their absorption is so terrible because their gut is so depleted.
They're not even getting it.
Right. It's like a waste. It's like, it's not a waste because they still got results, but right, it's like harder.
Hmm.
So let's repair the foundation. And I love that the gut is the root chakra. It's your foundation. Okay.
Wow.
But now, so I have my gut restoration program, and that's where we start. Then, but now my focus, because so many women have HSV2. Okay. I
Mhm.
have a phenomenal vaginal biome test that I use as well. It's by Microbiome Labs and it's state of the art. I use state of the art labs on purpose because I want my clients to get results. Like the GI map, 50% of the results are wrong because the instruments are just junk. So I actually started looking and I educate and I look deeper into the vaginal biome. And what I'm finding there is a lot of the same things. We have 11 strains of good bacteria that we're supposed to have in a vagina, the lactobacillus strains.
Mhm.
And because of douching, because of birth control, because of a poor diet, because of environmental toxins, our vaginal biomes are being equally depleted like our gut biome is as well.
Interesting.
And same thing with the vaginal biome. If you do not have a strong foundation of those 11 lactobacillus strains in your vagina and you contracted HSV2, guess what? The HSV2 can easily outbreak and control and take over the situation. Okay. I'm also finding the candida, the
Hmm.
candida overgrowth, right? The yeast infections, which can trigger a lot of UTIs as well. And so now I've really started focusing on we need to repair our vaginal biome. This is a thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
This,
And so I've shifted my focus more into probiotic suppositories,
mhm.
which are just, there's antiviral suppositories. There's all these amazing things we can be doing to build our vaginal biome. And one of the things that I'm finding is that a lot of women are having unnecessary miscarriages and infertility simply because the vaginal biome isn't healthy. And so it
Wow.
can't like handle it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm
Wow.
working with a client right now that has been suffering from consistent genital wart breakouts to the point, okay? I literally cried my eyes out when she told me this. These breakouts have been so severe for so long that she had to make the conscious decision of, okay, I'm never going to have sex again. I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have a boyfriend. I'm never going to have kids.
Oh,
What a sad, so sad and depressing state to be in.
yeah.
So she actually found me from your podcast. Thank
Oh,
you.
good.
And she immediately jumped on my vaginal test when I showed it to her. And so I'm so glad she did, because out of the 11 strains, she had really high Gardnerella and a couple other gram-negative bacteria that have completely overgrown her vaginal biome, which is why the genital warts have been so just
They're being fed.
yeah.
Yeah.
And there's none of the good guys to like fight back and like crowd it out. Because as you build your good guys, it pushes out the capability for the opportunistic to be there. And so that's the concept, is we want to kill and then feed, and like kill, seed, and feed. So kill the good guys, seed the good guys, and then feed the good guys. And we're doing this through different, like I was saying, like suppositories, probiotic suppositories, these different methods that I've learned. And I told her just a couple weeks ago, I presented her test results and her protocol to her, and I was like, sweetheart, you're going to be able to have sex again. You're going to be able to date again. And guess what? We're going to get this so under control that you don't even have to have any more uncomfortable conversations with anyone, because it's not going to be a problem. And she just wept and wept and wept.
That's so amazing.
It really was. And
It's so amazing.
I want everyone to know that this exists. And I really want to instill a message of hope for everyone that's hearing this. Okay. Do not give up hope that you can have a healthy sex life, that you can have children, that you can beat down these infections and breakouts and just live a normal, healthy, happy life again. Like, it's possible.
Oh, just listening to this takes me back to my 20s. And that's why I got herpes, is because I had BV, then I'd have a yeast infection, and then I would get a UTI, and then it would just go from antibiotic to antifungal to, anti whatever. And it was just nonstop. And then, I had awful acne. And so let's put you on something for acne. And I'm like, no wonder why my body just, I had infections nonstop. I just couldn't get over it. So hearing this, that's exactly, it's so frustrating, because we need antibiotics for certain things that happen. There are times when it happens, right? Yeah. But not to just be passed out like, oh, you have a little infection here. Oh, okay, here's an antibiotic. No, there's lots of other ways to, and I've gotten that way with my son. And I'm like, nope, we're not putting him on one. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to try this.
Yeah. And thank you for saying that, because antibiotics, I don't hate antibiotics. They have been a great infection. They've saved many people's lives. Mm-hmm. Our society just got used to abusing them. And we didn't know any better, because we trust our doctors. We trust the white coats and the authorities. And this was what they were giving us when we went for help, right? So how did we know? But thanks to, it has really shifted. And I guess the past maybe 3 to 5 years, like, people are realizing, and even some of the appointments that I've had to take my kids to when they were sick, their urgent care doctor was like, well, I would rather try to avoid antibiotics. And I was like, what? Did I just hear you say that? Right. So it is now very common knowledge, but I think where I'm still seeing the disconnect with people is like, they are like you just said, they're now like aware of the actual treatments from the doctor, but what about all the other ways we're ingesting them?
Right.
Which is through the animals we eat, right? And so again, with that brings in the whole trendy, like, organic, grass-fed. Mm-hmm. But let me share a little pro tip with you guys. So a lot of my women cannot lose weight. They can't. They work out, they're stuck in fight or flight. Their gut is stuck in fight or flight. Mm-hmm. They're going to the gym. They're just push, push, push. They're not sleeping well. There's all these things, right? And so we do their gut test, and they're like, why can't I lose weight? And I will see there's two particular bacteria that are markers for a higher BMI and obesity. And so I'll see these markers, and which is basically just the, in simple terms, guys, the good guys have taken over, the bad guys are really struggling. And so because of this dysbiosis or imbalance, this is really playing a role into why women are struggling to lose weight. But here's the catch. It would be a lot easier to bring these balances in, to bring this dysbiosis into balance if you would actually cut down on the amount of animal meat that you're eating. And so that's one of the things that I have to actually do with my clients, is shift them more to like, all right, I give them this order. So you guys could all write this down. Okay, here's a freebie. So the protein eating order goes like this. And this is what I live by too. So starting from top to bottom, in the most you eat to the least, okay? It goes legumes, nuts, and seeds. And then it goes wild caught fish, and then organic turkey, and then organic poultry, and then organic beef, no pork. I just don't like pork. It's gross. But if you like pork, just know that the beef and the pork are on the bottom, and they are the eat sparingly. So a lot of my clients will be like, well, how do I implement this? It's like, we'll switch it up. One night you're going to have a big pot of beans. One night you're going to have some wild caught salmon. One night you're going to have some turkey patties, and then one night you're going to have some ground beef tacos, and you just rotate through them and bring in a lot more fruits and vegetables, greens and microgreens. Okay, don't forget your sprouts. And all of these higher whole food, plant-based foods, they feed the vaginal biome, they feed the gut biome, and all the good guys in the vaginal and the gut bacteria need in order to grow, proliferate, and take over, so that the breakouts aren't so consistent and severe.
Okay. I love this. And I'm listening and I'm like, yep, yeah, that was me, or this is me now, or yeah, all these things. And I know that there's just so many people in the Life with Herpes community that don't know what's going on. And all of my panels are normal. And I don't know, I feel fine. And I don't know why I am getting back to back outbreaks. What is going on? So this is why this message is so important for really everybody to hear and to look at and realize that we do have these viruses, and these viruses can cause such an adverse effect on our body, and we may not realize what the root cause is. So I'm so thrilled that you've brought this to our attention, and I'm honored to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah,
Where
to help.
Where can people find you?
Yes. Okay. So for the first 20 people that hear this episode, I'm giving away a antiviral handbook.
Ooh.
It's going to be linked out in my bio on Instagram, which is at coach.sarah.joy.
Okay, I'll have that all linked, guys.
Yeah, yes. And so before I close out, I just want to say, I want to close with one thing. Okay, you guys. So one of the concerns that I'm seeing of women that have herpes and thyroid issues, okay, is I want everyone to be aware, like I touched on this earlier, but I want you guys to be aware that if you were to roll into your endo, roll into your doctor, and you start spitting out these things. Well, I heard this coach and she was saying the IgG antibodies are connected to EBV and HSV and all these things. This is not common medical knowledge, okay? And so you could get some pushback. If you have a cool doctor, right on, okay? Otherwise, I would expect some pushback, but don't give up on that. And I also want you guys to know that blood labs, okay, through your doctor are the best for the infections that are in your organs and glands. Okay. But in order to get deeper answers to like what I was saying of your vaginal biome, your gut biome, or the metals, the mineral depletion and the metals that the viruses are eating and living on as well, you have to go deeper than blood. Okay. Blood, imagine you guys, blood is like a freeway. Okay. It's like a freeway that nutrients and your immune system travel on. It's just a pathway. So when they draw your blood, it's a snapshot of what was on your freeway, what was traveling down your freeway at that moment. Okay. In order to really find out why, you have to do a vaginal swab test. You have to send a stool sample in. You have to cut some of your hair off and send it in. This is how you get the actual root causes to your situation. Okay. There is the herpes research and thyroid research is behind what's called a closed door theory. Okay. There's not a lot of research or science that's allowed on these. So that's why nothing seems to be moving forward with them ever. And that's why there's limited testing. That's why we still have TSH diagnosing from the 60s or 70s. This is a closed door theory. So this is, again, why there's no new research coming out on these connections, really, and why doctors are very research based. So unless there's like a journal that releases this connection and they can like read it and be like, oh, this was released in a journal, so this must be true.
Right.
You could get some pushback. For those of you that live in the United States, okay, you don't have to depend on your doctor to pull your blood labs. I don't know if you guys realize this, but you can pull your own labs. There is a website I use. It's called BLT Systems. You can create a portal, you can create an account, and you can pay for your own labs. The herpes simplex complete panel is $40. Okay.
Wow.
The Epstein Barr panel is $100. A thyroid panel is $100. A thyroid TPO TGO was only $39.99. You can do this on your own. You can create this. You can you get the requisition emailed to you. You choose the lab, Quest Lab, or whoever is closest to you. Go get your blood drawn, and they email you the results in your portal. So if you have doctors that are really uncooperative and you want to get answers, there's your outlet. Okay. So don't feel stuck to them. So anyways, yeah, I'll give you that information too.
Please, I'll link it all.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to be creating and releasing the antiviral handbook. This document is going to include 6 supplements that support beating down, killing off, breaking through the defense mechanisms, stopping replication, and controlling the whole situation. Okay.
Love it.
Plus boosting your immune system, keeping the breakouts, under control. And there's a topical. I found a really good aloe vera based topical that I like as well. It really helps with, I know you have a fabulous topical. I've seen you talk about it. You could use her topical, but a lot of people, I've been confused. I'm like, why are they using Manuka honey? Like, there's such better things than Manuka honey. So I wanted to just like let you guys know there's these other topicals that are way better. I also provided some easy drinks that you guys could be drinking to boost your immune system that are also antiviral and keep breakouts under control. So I can't wait to see who the first 20 are.
I'm excited for everybody that's listening to this podcast because your life is going to transform.
Good, because my mission, as you know, is to educate 100 million women on the connection of herpes and thyroid illness by the year 2030. So hopefully I can cross off maybe my first 5,000.
There we go. We'll make it happen.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me on today. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much, Sarah. And you guys, you will definitely have to find Coach Sarah Joy. I will have everything linked. And thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.